Metroidvanias are my favourite genre, so while the tippy top has not moved that much, I have cycled out some long in development titles to include new and exciting ones, where pixel art fans will absolutely love this list, including some games with release dates or windows in 2025. So let's begin with Morning Star, a game which just published their Steam page and is already getting a lot of momentum, in which I'm using footage from their YouTube channel and is not an official trailer, where the Hollow Knight influence is clear, but in which you play as an owl and looks absolutely sick. And the same can be said for Soul Bleed, where I mentioned this in last year's video, and if this boss fight against a samurai and the multiple parries that you have to pull off is any indication, this might be a 9 Souls-like experience, with the news being that it has a release window of 2025 and is certainly one to watch. This video is brought to you by Scarlet City of Devils, a hand-drawn Metroidvania that self-describes as a demon punk hack-and-slash adventure in which you explore the city of Illyia and battle tough enemies, and as the title proposes, is a city of devils instead. The constant infighting between demons have resulted in them grouping up into clans to fight for control and power, the most notorious of which are the Knights of Virtue, seizing control over the famed fountain of the city and constructed a fortress around it where the other demon clans seek to claim it for themselves. It is among this setup that a heroine emerges to attempt to heal the broken heart of the city, but this is the story of how you are trying to stop her, so you might not be the traditional good guy protagonist in this title. In terms of gameplay, it will have more deliberate combat similar to a Souls-like game, having 6 weapons which will allow you to access new areas as well as more options in combat, and is a full-on Metroidvania with an interconnected world and backtracking, having an interesting looking hand-drawn art style with impressive looking bosses. There is a demo available on Steam right now, so do try that, and if interested, wishlist the game, where this will also be in February's Steam Next Festival and will release soon after on 7th March 2025. A couple of you have been asking about Savior in the comments, so I wanted to share what I know, where this long in development title was kickstarted in 2019, so that's 5+ years and counting. But the developers have been pretty much posting monthly updates on Kickstarter and are up to update number 55 there, truly being a work in progress and perhaps a true reflection of running an indie studio. This pixel art Metroidvania got my attention since it just looks so good, aided of course by the parkour-inspired movement that our protagonist has access to, and mixes sci-fi and fantasy elements in an open-world interconnected map and looks awesome, so yes, not cancel, but still no release date. And speaking of long in development titles, are you interested in The Last Night? That pixel art title was announced and then kind of fell off the map, which then led to interest transferring over to Replaced, but a long development cycle on that game has got people antsy as well, so how about Sky Dust, one that appears to be going for a similar thing visually, with 2D pixel art sprites mixed in with 3D environmental objects, set in a cyberpunk world where society has collapsed after a global disaster. The lines between morality and ethics have become blurred, and powerful individuals in society hire mercenaries to do their bidding. You play as such a mercenary, navigating both the real world and a virtual one, where you will have access to different abilities and skill trees in either world, and I'm very interested to see how that works out in terms of structure. Combat is fast-paced and strategic, requiring precise dodging, parrying, and timed attacks against a variety of enemies, each with unique movesets. But to be honest, the art style is doing a lot of the heavy lifting, which I'm not complaining about, the same of which can be said for Tales of Fate, which honestly should be higher up on the list, but I have placed it here for good reason since they are currently running their Kickstarter campaign until the 7th of March-ish 2025, and already crossed their funding target in like 2 days or something, but you can check out the campaign page for stretch goals and rewards. This is a gorgeous pixel art title that does have 3 characters in a fox, pig and koala, each offering unique playstyles and abilities. set in the fantasy lands of fauna, a great darkness threatens the realm, so our heroes embark on an epic journey through kingdoms and dungeons as they go about saving the world. You can seamlessly switch between these heroes, initially charging into combat with a powerful sword as the pig, and after landing your first big hit, swap over to the crossbow-wielding fox for a variety of ranged attacks, including ice magic to freeze enemies. There will be over 100 distinct items to find and equip, as well as a vast selection of skills, with the developers describing the boss fights as Souls-like, although based on the UI and footage, I don't see a stamina meter, so maybe Souls-like in terms of feel and vibe. Interestingly, there is also a world map that looks like those classic SNES JRPGs, so I guess depending on how strict you are with the genre definition, you might consider this to be an action platformer with Metroidvania elements, but either way, this looks pretty cool, with this next title using hand-drawn art instead in Maui the Shapeshifter, in which you play as a demigod in a tropical island kind of setting. Again, a great darkness is threatening your island home, so our hero needs to fight back, using his legendary shape-shifting abilities to transform into various animals, each with unique powers to be used in platforming, exploration, and even combat. Examples here include a green sea turtle, a spider and a butterfly, where you pretty much instantly switch between forms, which makes the platforming look fluid and fun. There will of course be a large map with an open world kind of design and backtracking, filled with secrets, challenges and environmental puzzles, with the fish hook weapon looking awesome as well, but just look at the pretty art here, with the look of Mendacium looking great as well, where this game does look very Hollow Knight inspired down to the UI and especially the shopkeeper screen shown in the trailer. But it's a 2.5D title where I believe the character and enemies are technically 3D models but are constrained in their plane of movement. Instead of bugs, this is set in a prehistoric world dominated by primal reptiles, where rival tribes battle for supremacy amid the overhanging threat of an extinction-level event. You play as a young reptilian hunter that is carrying a tesseract, which allows you to manipulate organic matter using a spear as your primary weapon, but you will also have access to traps. Also, very Hollow Knight-like is the access to the Spirit Realm, which you go to upon death, so maybe there is some sort of corpse run system here and seems to be going under the radar, so I'm happy to shine a spotlight on it. So subscribe to this channel if you love discovering new indie games, and we also have a very pretty title in another way, being Gal Guardian's Servants of the Dark, the follow-up to Gal Guardian's Demon Purge, where instead of playing as demon hunters, you play as a pair of demon maid sisters who are attempting to revive the demon lord and to rebuild their castle. This is from Indie Creates, so maybe not so indie, but is in that realm since they are making games like this which bigger developers do not touch, with this game expanding upon the previous entry, allowing you to explore the larger demon world instead of just the castle, with both this game and its predecessor having an interesting combat system and has a great pixel art look. The same can be said for WOLFHOUND, a sci-fi World War II Metroidvania coming to us from developer BitKid, best known for Chasm, where this looks to be a more classically designed one of these instead of their experimentation with procedural generation in their previous game. You play as Captain Chuck Wolfhound Rossetti, a one-man army tasked with infiltrating a mysterious Axis base located in the Bermuda Triangle, running and gunning your way through while battling not only Axis soldiers but also the sinister experiments of the evil Dr. Steiner, being able to turn his tech against him with weapons and equipment like a railgun, gravity boots and a jetpack, which conveniently become the Metroidvania-style traversal ability unlocks. The throwback pixel art look is awesome, reminiscent of an 8-bit title and has Contra 1 vibes, and is a breath of fresh air due to the theme, with another pixel art title also set on an island being Hayaku, Island of Darkness, which just so happens to look like an 8-bit title as well, but this time more resembling Mega Man instead of Contra. You play as a skilled soldier in an organization tasked with investigating anomalous events, where your job brings you to a mysterious island teeming with dangerous and unpredictable creatures. Driven by a personal mission to find his missing brother, our hero explores the varied biomes using over 12 types of weapons and a variety of upgrades to fight his way through, and can hop into a mech-like armor as well that does remind me of Panzer Paladin, but this is a Metroidvania instead of being level based, and seems like it has a sick chiptune soundtrack as well, and pixel art fans are eating good since Silent Planet is also of interest, a gothic sci-fi Metroidvania which was recently reviewed and has already started to make waves. Set in the year 2997, you travel to an alien planet in search of an ancient artifact known as the Angel's Egg, said to be the source of all life in the universe, exploring the ruins of a now dead civilization as you make your way through the claustrophobic corridors of a massive underground complex. From the art style and look of this game, it sure seems to be invoking Symphony of the Night, although without the classic backdash animation, but you do have roll and dodge options, as well as melee and ranged weapons with psychokinetic powers. But we have to wait a little longer for this since it is targeted for 2026, which hopefully will not be the year of release for the long in development Rune Fencer Illyia, which has 2025 penciled in, but this title has been delayed a couple of times if I'm remembering correctly, so fingers crossed this will finally be the year. This is also a pixel art title, but visually doesn't pop as much as some of the previous games on this list, but there certainly is potential here since you play as a young runist with the ability to steal runes from enemies to cast powerful magic. Emerging from the wreckage of your airship, you must find your twin sister who was also on the ship but are now separated, and then to find a way home. Having over 24 interconnected areas and 150 unique enemies, which is probably why it is taking so long. Indie developers do take note, however, since the very long release cycle has led to this game just collecting Steam wishlists along the way, and is in theory one of the most anticipated Metroidvanias on Steam, similar to Neo Memories in Orbit. A quick respite from all the pixel art games in being a gorgeous 2.5D title, which got a lot of attention when it was first revealed. You play as Mio, a nimble robot that awakens in The Vessel, a spaceship drifting aimlessly in space, which is overrun by rogue machines and lush vegetation. The game's narrative centers on uncovering the mysteries behind the vessel's AI caretakers, known as Pearls, who have ceased functioning, leaving the ship to rot, and as you explore, you will uncover the true past and identity of Mio as well. It looks absolutely gorgeous with fun platforming and combat, and should be one of the contributors towards 2025 being the year of the Metroidvania. And going back to pixel art, we have LUCID, perhaps a bit unfortunately named since there are 3 games on Steam with the exact same title, so use the link in the description to get the right one, being a self-styled Celestoidvania, meaning that it takes inspiration from the precision platforming legend Celeste and incorporates that into a Metroidvania structure. As a young aspiring sentinel, you go on a quest to revive the fallen giant and to restore the harmony of the celestial fabric, having to explore and fight your way through this crystal punk world torn apart by dissonance. Crystal arts are the main abilities here, from a crystal blade, crystal spear and crystal axe, which are not only weapons to be used in combat, but also double as traversal options. The tight controls are their focus, giving you a degree of air control, so the movement and combat feels good, with an upgrade tree for the various crystal arts as well as braces, which you can upgrade with talismans, and was successfully funded on Kickstarter, where if you've been subscribed to this channel for a little while, you will of course know that I love my pixel art, both for nostalgia reasons, but also what is possible with modern technology and how developers are making drop-dead gorgeous titles, which is why Altered Alma makes the list. Set in Neo Barcelona, our protagonist is the owner of a spaceship named the Esperanza and uses it as a base of operations for the exploration of the city. Of course, being a Metroidvania, this is a combat-heavy title as you explore the city with fast-paced traversal and combat, which includes brutal execution animations. It also has the developers' interpretations of futuristic cyberpunk versions of iconic locations like the Sagrada Familia and Park Güell, with the setting being intriguing, where in addition to the core combat, there is somewhat of a dating sim element as well, where you can bond with other characters and maybe even find love in this unforgiving world, and is a no-brainer pick with a gorgeous hand-drawn title instead, being Fallen Tier The Ascension, coming to us from a Filipino developer, so Southeast Asia represent. This is also a Kickstarter darling and did successfully raise a modest sum of money, where I have looked at their website and it is actually quite a large team, so the indie game classification might be a little blurred here, but still, it's not easy being a game developer in this part of the world, so I'm trying to help them out. You play as a mysterious young boy seeking the truth about his forgotten past, battling your way through dangerous monsters and corrupted gods alike as you seek to bring balance to the world. Interestingly, the game allows you to find and recruit fated bonds to aid you in combat, looking similar to the homunculi in Ender Lilies, with our hero being able to transform into a monstrous beast as well, and looks absolutely sick. But back to pixel art with Time Spinner 2 Unwoven Dream, the sequel to a game that was once thought to be vaporware due to its long development cycle, but it launched and was well received, so I'm not surprised to see this game being made. This is set after the events of the original, so you will see some familiar faces, but you play as a new character named Arya, a retired war hero who awakens to the ominous stirrings of the catastrophic Unwoven Dream. Amidst the turmoil, her son runs away to prove that he is the destined hero who can forestall the impending collapse of reality, and driven by the love of her son, she picks up her orbs of crystallized magic and goes after him. Similar to the first game, the pixel art is absolutely fantastic and looks similar, and is a case of more of the same rather than anything drastically different visually, but I'm not complaining since it still looks awesome, with the orb-based attacks in the original being very unique, so I'm excited to see how they expand upon it here. With no release date or window given, but hopefully it will be much shorter than the 8 years it took for the original, with another pixel art title of interest being Pipsqueak, a very cute title in which you play as a little mouse named Tofu, exploring a strange and hostile world. Not too much has been revealed about the game so far, but it emphasizes fluid and satisfying traversal and combat, unlocking new skills and abilities to access new areas to give you more options in combat. Also having 20 combat enhancing earrings to select from to give you more advantages in battle. This comes to us from developer Pon Games, who made the level-based precision platformer Right, which is a delight, so definitely add it to your watch list. And I said that pixel art fans have it good, since we also have the release of Eden's Guardian to look forward to, a dark fantasy title set in a medieval fantasy world that sure does look like blasphemous to me. You play as a guardian who, after many years of imprisonment, manages to break free only to realize that the world is now crumbling under a mysterious curse and must do her best to lift it. The first guardians of this world were the offspring between a god and a mortal, born with divine powers which have weakened over the generations, causing them to turn to a dark power to strengthen themselves at the cost of their own sanity, with our heroine being imprisoned for going against the grain and thus sets up the story. Combat here is the highlight, with the ability to swing your sword and teleport to it, used in both combat and traversal, since you can quickly get behind enemies or to get to hidden inaccessible areas. It looks absolutely gorgeous and seems like a no-brainer, as is the case with Twilight Monk, a hand-drawn entry with a martial arts and kung fu inspired world, where the land is shrouded in darkness and monsters ravage the villagers and kill the humans. Survivors gather at the monastery seeking help, where you play as a descendant of the Twilight Monk, who must stop a traitor. You must first recover 3 powerful rings, adventuring through the world in order to do so, and interestingly, like Tales of Fate mentioned earlier, does have a JRPG style overworld map in terms of exploration, but you can enter handcrafted dungeons, which is where the Metroidvania elements come in. The lead developer on this game is a concept artist by trade, having worked on some huge AAA titles over the years, and it shows since the hand-drawn art looks sick, where you can see a different kind of sick in Grime 2, the follow-up to a Souls-like Metroidvania from 2021, where you played as a living black hole, but in this sequel, you become the Stealer of Forms, an art mimic, aka the Formless, which conveniently allows you to absorb creatures and summon molds in their shape. If you're not familiar with the original, the enemy designs and bizarre world was what made it stand out to me, since you are not facing off against skeletons, vampires, goblins or aliens, but rather creatures made of rock and root that oddly took on a humanoid form, being creepy and unsettling, which makes this so effective. The enemy molds that you create will be a core part of the combat, where you can summon creatures, fire projectiles, stun enemies and more, also having the return of the parry system as well as a tentacle grasp to grab onto and absorb enemies. The art and world looks sick, with it being announced in 2023, so we are likely to get more news on this game this year, which should be the case for Mariachi Legends as well, a Mexican folklore-inspired Metroidvania, which at some point had a 2024 release window before being changed to coming soon, and is from the developer of 9 Years of Shadow, which was gorgeous, but perhaps left a little bit more to be desired in the Metroidvania parts of the game, so they have another shot with this game. Similarly, this has a gorgeous pixel art style in which you play as Pablo Cruz, a detective who has made a deal with Lady Death herself, being able to transform into the mighty La Sombra, aka the Shadow, to fight off enemies and to protect his home. However, the deal is that he now has to help Death hunt down the one man that has eluded her and is effectively immortal, with an array of challenging bosses and enemies as well. Interestingly, the developers are experimenting with the structure of the game, since the hometown that you want to protect is filled with other townspeople and will offer shops, NPCs to drink with, and side missions, along with an extensive cooking system featuring Mexican cuisine, a dual map that sounds like Guacamelee, a day, night, and full moon system that will affect what you encounter in each area and looks pretty ambitious, with a title that is pretty much a sure bet being Mandragora, Whispers of the Witch Tree as well, a side-scrolling title with Souls-like elements which has crushed when it released its demo, adding this new subtitle since we last took a look, so look forward to this in April, which brings us to Crow's Sworn, one of the sickest looking titles that is so hotly anticipated, since yes, it did draw Hollow Knight comparisons when it was first revealed, but you play as a scythe-wielding, top-hat-wearing, plague doctor-looking character with a cape, and more importantly, access to guns, having sleek, fast-paced action and just looks so good, raising more than $1 million on Kickstarter back in 2021, so hopefully we might get some news soon, when the developers have been sharing updates, which is good, but the same cannot be said for Hollow Knight Silksong, the Metroidvania and the indie game that the entire gaming community is watching, probably announced too early in 2019, but still, the hype for the sequel to the indie Metroidvania is through the roof, but people have gotten so hyped up all by themselves to the extent of getting angry at the developers for not communicating, which seems cray-cray to me, where my advice is just to breathe and relax, and it will release when it releases, with plenty of other awesome games to play in the meantime. Case in point, with upcoming 2D action platformers to look forward to.